Hey guys, Greg Alba here. It's 2017. Happy New Year. I'm pretty sick right now. I got body aches, I feel very lightheaded, I got a sore throat, a stuffy nose. I got it all going on right now, but I wanted to get this video out before it became too irrelevant of a topic. Today, instead of doing a top 10 favorite movies or worst movies, I'm going to do more specific list this time. Top 5 favorite action scenes of 2016. I wrote down many action scenes and I narrowed it down to 5. Most of them are comic book movies, just giving you a heads up. But here are my 5. Interested to hear what your guys' 5 are, but let's start off with my number 5. My number 5 scene is Wolverine's fight scene in X-Men Apocalypse. I was a big fan of this movie. It's rather forgettable. I think it's Bryan Singer's most flawed X-Men film. With that being said though, the cameo by Weapon X as Wolverine was absolutely fantastic. While we've got an awesome fight scenes of Wolverine slashing up some motherfuckers in previous X-Men films before, none of them have been like this. This one was brutal. It really showed an animalistic side to Wolverine. This moment is essentially redoing Wolverine's origin of that specific time when he had the adamantium placed in his body. The way Hugh Jackman performs this one scene he has is so well done. He has no sympathy for human life. It is just pure survival at this moment. He's like an animal being provoked by, being attacked. I feel that this scene alone, if there was just a little more attention to detail on the wounds of these soldiers, if there was just a little bit more blood, that this scene alone would have garnered the film an R rating. I mean, there's a moment that's pretty violent, but because it's like not gory, he actually thrusts his claws underneath a soldier's chin, and then he throws him against the wall, and it's painful to watch because it's a brutal moment. And like as we saw in the Logan Red Band trailer, he does that to a bald dude, and then he goes under the chin, but the claws pop out of the back of the bald guy's head, showing like, oh, this is why this is a Red Band trailer. So I feel like this moment alone sets us up for a more brutal kind of Wolverine in the Logan movie. And it was just really cool to see this very animalistic side of Logan, because he's not fighting for anyone but himself at this specific moment. My number 4 choice is the brief fight sequence in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, where Darth Vader is going through the hallway, fucking up a bunch of rebel soldiers. If you look back at the original Star Wars trilogy, there's really not a whole lot of Vader fighting, and the fight sequences were from several decades ago, and I feel that fight choreography has greatly improved over the years. At the same time though, this updated sequence of Vader fighting is much more than how the Star Wars prequels did their fights, because the prequels have much more fancy lightsaber work, a lot more fancy choreography. They do lack an emotional intensity to it. This sequence in Rogue One is the only fight scene that actually features a lightsaber, and while it's more choreographed than anything we've seen of Darth Vader in the past, it capitalizes on the wrathful force of his dark side. He's moving through the small crowd of soldiers, deflecting their lasers, slicing them up, and one thing I really enjoyed too was the use of the force in the fight. One thing that bothers me in a lot of movies where an action hero has some form of like telekinesis is they don't seem to use it when it would help them out the most. I think of that awesome Chateau fight scene in The Matrix Reloaded. Like, it's brilliantly choreographed, but I feel that Neo could have easily force punched those dudes in some way, or used the blades and threw it at them, anything, and then he would have been able to grab Trinity, Morpheus, and the Keymaster. None of the freeway fight would have had to happen. Or Kylo Ren's fight scene with him against Rey and Finn in The Force Awakens. Like, that fight starts off with Kylo force pushing Rey into a tree, knocking her out. Those abilities, he could have easily knocked out Finn as well, or just force choked them or whatever. I mean, for that fight, you could argue that Kylo Ren was in some way playing with his food, but it still doesn't feel well justified enough to me for why he's not using the Force. In Vader's fight in Rogue One, he uses a lot of the Force as he's going through the soldiers. Like, I think the highlight moment of that fight was when he uses the Force to put a soldier on the ceiling, blocks a few lasers, and then as he's passing the soldier above him, he just slices through him and then continues fighting. And the emotional intensity of the fight is so well put there that it kind of makes you feel that, like, if this movie was made before A New Hope, that this would have been a great way to set up Vader as the main villain for A New Hope. So while it's Vader's shortest fight, not including, Hayden Christensen as Edison Skywalker, it hands down made for his most badass fight. My number 3 choice has got to be from a film that I felt was a major disappointment, but ultimately did deliver a fight scene that I wanted to see for many years. That would be the Batman fight scene in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. In the fight scene, yes, we get to see Batman use his gadgets to take out bad guys, but most importantly, we get to see the incredibly skilled fighter that he is. I absolutely love the Dark Knight trilogy. I really enjoy all of them. My one main complaint with the trilogy, or any live action Batman interpretation before Nolan's Batman, Batman films was specifically the fight scenes featuring Batman. I've been saying for years that I've been wanting to see Batman as a true martial artist. And while they established that in the Dark Knight trilogy, the fight scenes didn't really break any new ground in terms of exploring Batman's fighting capabilities. Because of the way Batman's suit is designed in like Tim Burton's Batman movie or Nolan's Batman movie, he can't really move that fluidly or do as many moves that he could do without the suit because the suit kind of keeps him a little stiff. But in BVS, the fight scene allows us to see Batman as a brutal force of a martial artist while incorporating good Batsy gadgets throughout. I also appreciated that Batman isn't perfect in this fight. He gets hit a couple times. He gets stabbed at one point. He even gets shot in the head at one point. I like having moments like that where you see this guy really is a human being. He can't dodge everything. And not only giving us enhanced martial arts choreography, we got to see him break a lot of fucking bones, and it was cool to just see that lethal weapon of Batman who can just shatter your body. So yeah, I was just happy to see Batman as a ruthless, lethal martial artist. My number 2 choice is the Sanctum fight scene in Doctor Strange. This movie alone I felt was an absolute delight. Its fight sequences were especially amazing. It was this one in particular that really stood out to me though. This is the first fight where Doctor Strange has learned a lot of powers and is now using the magic to fight against evil. I mainly love this sequence just because of how purely imaginative it was. Like, it does have its moments where it reminds you of The Matrix and Inception, especially when the guys are like running up the walls and shit, and the mind-bending reality. Like, they keep all the magical powers alive throughout this very well choreographed fight sequence. And it's choreography like this that I feel gets overlooked, especially in comic book movies, because we just expect them to be great fights, but we don't take the time to go, who are the guys choreographing these fight scenes? I still haven't looked it up. So in this sequence, it's more than just kicks and punches or just straight weapons, because the weapons these characters have are their magical abilities. And I felt absolutely wowed by this suspense backed with imagination, because we saw a lot of these powers being performed, whether it be in the opening sequence of the film with the Ancient One, or when you're seeing Doctor Strange just training. So this scene allowed it to be contained in a rather smaller environment than a lot of the fight scenes in Doctor Strange. Come up with unique ways to eliminate the bad guys, like throwing them out those windows and stuff. It segues into that awesome hospital fight that I loved. It kind of reminded me of the Frighteners. And it also gave us Doctor Strange's awesome capes. It showed us new things, it refined powers that were being shown to us earlier. And it also had a great emotional intensity because this is Doctor Strange's first fight. We know he's a rookie and probably doesn't have as strong of powers as a lot of these other guys, so he has to use the thing that makes Doctor Strange especially special, which is the ability to outwit these guys. Alright, here it is, my number 1 top choice that's probably on everyone's list as well. The airport battle sequence in Captain America Civil War. So in this fight, you got Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Ant-Man, Iron Man, War Machine, Spider-Man, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Vision. Now, in terms of just comic book fight scenes alone, this has got to be easily one of the top ones. You've got so many characters we've seen in prior films just decking it out now, and each one of them gets just enough screen time to truly show what makes them awesome and also gives us a chance to see some newer abilities. This fight scene is also packed with a lot of personality. It doesn't just only become a fight scene. The humor comes to life, especially with Spider-Man and Ant-Man, so you still get funny dialogue from a lot of them throughout the fight. And even in the fighting moments with Spider-Man, you still get to see what makes this Spider-Man different. While Tobey Maguire still had some of his jokes, Andrew Garfield left a taunt, still get this vibe that there's a high school kid underneath this costume. Like, you really feel like he's still a kid. You have the right to remain silent! And they managed to include Giant Man, which is just a super wow moment for people and a nice surprise. I love the interplay of when switching around to when which characters are fighting which at the time. This fight really took what makes everyone very specific and unique and had them at moments go, okay, let's see these two fight each other. Let's see these two fight each other. Let's see these guys go at it now. How would they battle each other? Everyone's fighting abilities was so specifically tailored. It was so cool to see a lot of unique kind of fighting all being meshed into one. And while a lot of them do martial arts in the fight, it had the right blend of actual fighting, weaponry fighting, and superpower abilities, bringing all these characters' personalities and powers to life with a powerhouse action sequence that just really gets your heart pumping and you're smiling. It's intense. And it's so cool. It's like all the emotions you'd want to feel out of an amazing spectacle. And just so I can mention this, there were other fights that I thought about putting out as my top 5, but they just didn't quite make the top 5. The opening freeway action scene in Deadpool, the final showdown with Captain America and Bucky versus Iron Man in Civil War, the Las Vegas car chase scene in Jason Bourne, Quicksilver rescuing people from the exploding mansion in X-Men Apocalypse, and Donnie Yen's fight scene against the Stormtroopers in Rogue One. Alright guys, well that's my top 5 favorite fight scenes of 2016. I did not catch every movie. I know there's a couple of films that featured some action that I I did not catch? What were your guys' top 5? Or what are the movies you think in 2017 that will deliver the best action sequences? If you're new to the channel, subscribe today. We could use another subscriber. I hope you're the one. I think I'm gonna take a NyQuil now, smoke a joint, which will probably not be good for my throat, but fuck it. Weed.